Welcome to the Toffee Blues channel, your source for all things Everton. I'm joined by Callum Brannan, and today we've got a little bit of a different one. We'll be discussing the potential of Serge Aurier. Obviously, on deadline day, he asked if he could leave Tottenham after they got a new right back. It was looking like he might go to Dubai, but apparently he said that he does aim to stay in England. I think Arsenal is one of the clubs he's heavily linked with. Cal, your thoughts on Serge Aurier? Would you take him at Everton?
I mean, we'd take anything at this point, wouldn't we? He wouldn't be a number one choice, but it's like we were saying the other day. I don't think it's a bad signing. I don't think it's on a free as well. We're not paying any money. We're bringing him in as a possible short-term option for maybe the season. Give him a one-year prove-it deal. Problem is he's a bit shaky defensively. He's got a big mistake in him, similar to Michael Keane. So I don't think you could play them two together. But I also think, it's a lot better than John Joe Kenny. And then if Seamus Coleman does go down with an injury or he's just too tired to play, we have a decent option because I do think he would be the backup. I don't think he'd start over Coleman. So I think it is some good business on a free, especially if we can get him on decent wages on a prove yourself, like a one-year prove yourself deal. I think it's good business. And I think we probably are the front runners. I can't see him leaving for Arsenal because it's just, he had, a surprise. To say he was so Everton, from what I've seen, he had a surprisingly decent relationship with Spurs fans. So I don't know if he'd just be willing to throw that all under the bus to join Arsenal, because then the Maitland-Niles stuff as well. They've promised him first team football and then signed another right back. So I think we might be up there, because I think if we throw a contract offer in, we'd probably be the biggest club in for him in England. So I think it's something Everton need to get on quickly, especially if we don't have to offer him too much money to sign.
Yeah, I think for a lot of, for me, it depends a lot on the money and the length of his contract. I would like us to, ideally, if we could, I'd love us to do a Joshua King where we literally just offer him a year, see what it's like with an extension possible, and then see what we're like in a year. If we still think we're going to struggle to get a right back, fine. But if we're going to, burst the bank for Max Aarons, then there's no point really having Serge Aurier on a really big wage just hanging about. What ideally do you think the contract length should be for him? Do you think a year, or do you think possibly two, like we've offered Solomon Rondon?
I'd say one with an offer of an extension, because you could even offer him a 2-year extension. You could go, listen, you have a good season. We'll give you these cheap wages now. They're not what you want, but you have a good season. We can give you a 2-year extension with a possibility of a wage boost in there. It doesn't have to be a big wage boost, but I think he doesn't mind being a backup, or in a sense where he knows he'll be rotated in. Because for all we know, if we get Aurier and then we say we're going to sign Max Aarons, Coleman might be like, right, I can finally actually retire now. I can finally sit down, or maybe he might go back to Ireland or something. He might, but yeah, I think we should make sure to keep the contract low. That's what I was trying to get out. Something similar to Rondon, or not too big wages. Like I said previously, a prove yourself deal. So I think, I don't think we would offer a lot. I could maybe see him going to a club in England that are just desperate for a right back, like a lower side, who just go, here you go, here's your wages that you want. But no, I think we'll offer him quite cheap wages with an extension similar to James and to Rondon.
Yeah, well, you mentioned obviously the Arsenal links, that he was liked by Spurs fans, and I must admit I watched the All or Nothing documentary on Spurs, and he was one of the few, not few, that sounds like they're all horrible, but he was one of the players that stood out, that came across very well for me. He was talking about his community. He likes to do community work with Tottenham, and that he just feels like he should give back because he's in a position of basically luxury. He's in a very luxurious position and a very fortunate position. And so he seems to be a very nice guy. And from what I can gather from Tottenham fans, bar obviously, like you said, the odd mistake that he is susceptible to, and the fact that defensively, I don't think he's very aware. He did get a lot of games in for Tottenham. He played 19 last season, scored 2, assisted 3, came out with an average rating of like 7.6. And then the season before that, played 33 games. He had he really was in that Tottenham squad all year. Does it surprise you that, given all of this, he's going to be leaving he's left on a free?
On a free, yeah, definitely surprises me. I think he's a lot better than a free. I think it's, is it Spurs thinking that they're a lot better than what they have. Something that they've been accused of a lot over the past few years. And yeah, bringing in Emerson Royale, but I do think he's better than Doherty. Personally, I think he's better, but I think also Nuno knows he can get the best out of Doherty, and I think Aurier might have been the backup, but then he might have went over and went, "Could we put my contract? I want to leave." And Nuno just said, "Well, if he doesn't want to be here, what's the point keeping him?" So I do think it's quite strange to have let him go on a free. Like you said, 2 goals and 3 assists in basically 20 games. That's he's contributing well enough. Even if his defensive numbers aren't the end of the world, in his if I take his season where he actually played 3 tackles, 1.5 interceptions, he's involved a lot. I think he's just from the errors he's involved in, they put a shadow over him, like a clouded shadow, that he's this terrible defender who can't do much. And I think he is a solid thing. And I honestly do think under Rafa, we could really get a solid season out of him because, a right back who can give you 2 goals and 3 assists in half a season, what's that? If we just go off common sense and double that, 5 goals, 6, about 5 goals, 5 assists from a fullback, you wouldn't complain about that at all. I do, and having him alongside Digne, and I think he also offers a lot of athleticism, so he does have that real recovery speed, for example, that Digne lacks to get back, and that is probably where he ends up making the mistakes, just dragging someone to the floor. But I do think it'd be a really good signing. I think it's something Everton do need to pounce on. And because it's one of these examples of us maybe being able to sign a player whose reputation's low because of, a few incidents, and then really turning him around, and maybe even if we sign Aaron's, being able to make a big profit on him, for example.
Yeah, I think you've got a point there when you mentioned about his defensive mistakes being remembered more. I think that's just the curse of being a defender. For everything you do right, you're always remembered for your mistakes, especially if they lead to goals. And I think that's the curse of Harry Maguire fell for it quite a bit last season. He was known more for the mistakes than the actual things he did right. Because if you were going to talk about everything he did right, you'd be there forever. Sort of attitude. I have to play devil's advocate slightly. Asking for his contract to be torn up on the final day, the deadline, last hour, if I remember rightly. Some might see that as a bad personality to have at the club, but then on the counter side, he did it because he wanted first team football. Where do you lie on this sort of? Because I know there'll be some saying no because he's got an attitude problem because his contract tear up, but I know there'll be some saying he did it for first team football.
But if he's going to be the first string right back, my argument back to that would be, why is it a attitude problem? It's like we weren't, for example, if there are Blues saying that, are they the same Blues that were cheering on Maitland-Niles for going against Arsenal when it's the exact same situation in the end? I think it's I don't think he's necessarily doing anything bad, because in the end, what he's doing is saying, could we rip up my contract on mutual money so you don't have to pay me nearly as much compensation as you would have had to if you released me? They've come to a mutual deal. He hasn't cost Spurs nearly any money. He realizes he's been replaced and said, instead of, sitting here and in the end, wasting Spurs' wage budget by being sat on the bench, because I do think he was on a decent wage because he was pretty good for PSG before he moved to Spurs. He went, I want to play football. In the end, it's commendable. He's not just sitting there collecting the money that in the end he deserves. He earned that contract, whether people like it or not. And he said, no, I want to play football. I don't think it's an attitude problem at all. In my opinion, it's actually something that's commendable, because he's putting football before his financial situation. So, that's someone who wants to play football. And that means if we do sign him, we're going to get 100% out of him all the time, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it's, I think it's a very positive attitude. It's somebody who wants to play, like Maitland-Niles. It's somebody who really wants to play football and doesn't want to just sit there and earn, an easy money, basically. And you mentioned the high wages. How much do you think Benitez brands could convince him to take a wage drop?
Well, if I go here and I go Serge Aurier, Tottenham wage, he was earning, why is it giving me in years? Three, that's £1 million, isn't it? Pounds. What am I doing? Sorry, divided by 50. Right, so it's about 70 grand a week, give or take. And I think we could convince him down to 40, 50. And in the end, on a 1-year deal, it's because people are like, oh no, we're giving wages away again. For example, even if we paid Aurier the 70k for 1 year, it's not the end of the world because it's a 1-year deal. And then that contract is gone. It's not in our wage books at the end of next season. I think that's a big thing not many people pay attention to. But yeah, I can't imagine 70 grand's exactly right, give or take. There'll be bonuses and stuff included. But I think we could convince him to take 50, maybe 60. But in the end, I think in this landscape of football, that's not a bad wage to be getting someone on, especially if he's going to be probably starting 20 to 25 games for us.
To be fair, looking at our supposed wages, he wouldn't be our highest earner by a good mile. There's a couple of players above him who you could argue even more don't deserve the wages. Fabian Delph is supposedly a higher earner, along with Andre Gomez, and many fans would argue they don't deserve the wages they're sitting on. Just finally, before we leave on it, Cal, I'm just going to read out a poll that the Toffee Blues did on their Twitter. You can follow the Toffee Blues in the link down below. It was, would you take Serge Aurier at Everton? 73% said no, yes. 26.8% said no. It was 377 votes. There's still 23 hours as well left on that if you want to go and vote on it. Just your final verdict on it. Serge Aurier to Everton, yes or no?
Yeah, I don't think it really brings any negative light to us. It offers us more cover at right back. And if anyone says John Joe Kenny's better than Serge Aurier, no offense to the lad, but they're out of their mind. So I think in the end, it's only a good signing as long as we don't do an Everton and offer him stupid wages. But I don't think he can ask for around 70k a week if he's just has to have his contract ripped up. I think he has to take lower wages and then prove himself. So I think it's very low risk, high reward by Everton if they do make the signing.
No problem. That is everything we've got time for. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, comment down below on would you take Serge Aurier at Everton. Don't forget you can get all your Everton kits, merchandise, cups, mugs, everything from the Everton Direct. You can use the link in the description. It helps the channel out massively. We also have a raffle as well. We are in partnership with Football Prizes. If you follow the Toffee Blues on Twitter, it's been put on there. I'm sure there'll be a link in the description as well. You can win England's #1. You can buy your ticket for £4.95 for an England's #1 Jordan Pickford signed, framed Everton shirt. So don't forget to check that out as well. And most importantly, stay safe.